Hello and welcome to the Local Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Johnson. The Local Leaders Podcast provides a platform for successful business owners to share their stories, their experiences, their advice, and their ideas in order to help our listeners achieve more success in their business and in their lives. Get ready, another great show is coming up. Hey, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Local Leaders Podcast. We are here today with Brooks Shaw of the Old Country Store located in Casey Jones Village in Jackson, Tennessee. And Brooks, we're excited to have you here today, and thanks for being on the podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Hey, happy Friday. Great weather out there. Tennessee. He's in Tennessee. I'm in North Carolina. It's fall. It's about 60 degrees here. It just feels awesome.
Yeah, it's my favorite time of the year. I don't like snow and ice. Well, I like snow, not ice. But fall where it starts to cool off and football's in the air, and it's a good time of year.
Yeah, awesome time to be in Jackson, Tennessee, and go visit Casey Jones Village over there. There's all kinds of things to do, and we're going to talk a little bit about that today. But I guess I'll open it up and just hand it over to you, Brooks, and ask you just to share a little bit about kind of the history and the background and of the business and the different businesses that you guys operate within. Just kind of give us that whole story, and we'll let people know what you guys are all about.
Sure. So we were started in 1965 by my grandfather, who was also named Brooks, and he was the president of an old canned food company. Some people may remember Kelly Foods. They were particularly known for their Brunswick stew.
Don't even start me on Brunswick stew. I just ate 2 pints of that from last weekend. I've been eating it all week.
There you go. So he was a really hard worker and really helped turn this company around, the Kelly Foods, but in the process really kind of neglected his health. And so he suffered a major heart attack at the age of 32, 33, something like that.
Oh, wow.
As he was recovering, a friend of his gave him 3 antiques. And he said, you need a hobby. Maybe you could collect antiques. Well, Granddaddy took that to heart. And over a few years, he had amassed a collection of 10,000 antiques. He would go into these little old country stores as they were closing, and literally just buy everything on the walls. So he would do that, and he figured out he needed something to do with these antiques. So he opened the Old Country Store in 1965 as an antique museum, not even as an antique store where you could purchase it, but just a museum where you could come and see his collection. You'd pay an admission. Figured out really quickly that admissions weren't going to, pay the bills. So he opened a lunch counter for people to stop in and eat at, serving cold cut sandwiches, hooked cheese and crackers, and crackling cornbread. His mom's crackling cornbread recipe. Cracklings being those beautiful little morsels of pigskin and fat, and buttermilk and white cornmeal, and a couple other things that are secret. But started serving that, and it got to be so popular. He put a table there and a table there and a table over there, and we kind of woke up one day in a restaurant. So that's how the Old Country Store got started. We're at a different location for about 13 years. Moved here to the interstate where we are now in 1978. Purchased 25 acres. We've developed 15 of those acres and have another 10. They're just kind of sitting there for a rainy day. And then that's kind of how we got here.
Well, that's it's interesting the way he got started, and someone giving him some antiques, and then he started collecting and acquiring, and suddenly you got all this stuff, and you got to find a way to do something with it. So
He didn't do anything halfway.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it. He went all out on the antique side and got the Old Country Store rocking and rolling and going, and added the food component to bring in more people. And since then, you guys have really developed that property and added quite a few businesses. You want to kind of give us a quick summary of what all you have?
Yeah, sure.
In Casey Jones Village.
So the Old Country Store itself is it's about 24,000 square foot building, and in that building, we operate a full service buffet with 300 seats. We operate a takeout section with another 60 seats. Both of those are served from the same kitchen. It's a 4,000 square foot facility that we built about 4 or 5 years ago. We do caterings from anywhere from 15 people to 1,500 people. We have 2,000 square feet of gift shop space that's all retail, based around kind of unique Southern items and branded things for the Old Country Store. We have an ice cream parlor. We have meeting rooms we rent out. There's a train museum for Casey Jones, the legendary railroad engineer that we operate across the parking lot. There's various historic buildings that double as event venues. There's a chapel, 100-year-old chapel that we had moved in. We have the farm at Casey Jones Village where that we utilize as a teaching garden, if you will.
Wow.
What have I left off? Oh, Providence House is an antebellum structure that we moved in. It was a witnessed house to the Civil War. People climbed on the roof of the house and watched a battle behind it during the war. So that's one of our event venues. I think that about covers it.
Wow. Well, that sounds like enough to keep your arms around.
Yes, it keeps us busy.
Yeah, I would imagine. And, that you've got a lot of things to keep up with. So, how do you kind of split up your time to keep all these different, and well, let me backtrack. Are you operating each of these as a separate business? Number one.
No, everything is under the Old Country Store umbrella.
Gotcha.
So I'm a general manager and I basically have a finger in each of those pies, if you will.
Understood. So that keeps the accounting a little bit cleaner. Maybe you don't have 10 different P&Ls running, although you're probably kind of tracking sales at least for all of them. I'm assuming.
Yeah, my father-in-law is actually our CFO. He came on board with us about 4 years ago. After my wife and I got married. My wife's a photographer. She has her studio here in the village. So it really kind of stays all in the family. But he's a big key to our most recent successes over the last few years in bringing just an incredible wealth of knowledge from the financial standpoint and the operations of the business. And that's probably the thing that we've suffered from the most in the past, is that we've let our vision get ahead of our pocketbook, and we haven't had that person that's, a large investment for the business, but has paid for themselves over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's easy to kind of outgrow your pocketbook, as you say. When you've got all that space, you got all that potential, you got all these ideas, and you're like, hey, we got this, but now we need some of that. And it's grown that way. And I know you mentioned earlier that there were some operators, in the village. Are you renting space as well?
We have a friend of ours that owns a little strip building.
Okay.
He's a silent partner in the store, very, very silent partner. And he owns that. We do hope to purchase that from him in the future. And then he has developed Airbnbs over there in that building, as well as some retail space. So we just see it as a logical next step of getting it. It had been owned by one of the original developers of the village for decades. And when he got ready to divest it from his portfolio, we just weren't in a position where we were ready to take it on yet. So our other co-owner is kind of holding it as an investment until we're ready to purchase it from him. So hopefully that's in the next 3 to 4 years. But yeah, at that point we will be, becoming a landlord and leasing those spaces, and that'll be a whole new journey of this adventure. So
yeah, a whole new opportunity to learn more, right? Yeah, you say every time you get into something new, it's there's always a learning experience. And wow, it's just so impressive. And I encourage everybody that's listening to go to CaseyJones.com.
That's right.
To kind of see everything. So again, www.CaseyJones.com. You got the world famous buffet, you got the Dixie Cafe, catering, private events, gift shop, ice cream parlor, museum, the farm. Man, what a business.
It's a lot of fun, and we keep a very healthy presence on Facebook and Instagram as well. And people can find us on Facebook at Brookshaw's Old Country Store. And what's our Instagram handle? I have my social media coordinator here across the table from me, making sure I say the right things.
And that's Brianna
That's
Klein,
right.
ladies and gentlemen, for all of you
Yes.
who may meet her.
Excellent at what she does. Our Instagram handle is Old Country Store CJV, as in Casey Jones Village. So at Old Country Store CJV. You can find us there. Like I said, we keep a really healthy presence on that, thanks to Brianna's hard work and really making up for a lot of my slack on. I'm spread so thin. I have great people that can pick up the other areas that need to be handled really well.
Yeah, and everyone needs somebody on the marketing side that's polished and able to really help us get our story out there. And so thank you, Brianna. And if you got any friends who are as good as you and they're anywhere near North Carolina, I need to know about them.
My dad's been trying to hire me too.
Yeah, I won't try to steal you from Brooks, but
yeah, she's stuck with me.
yeah, I know you get a good one. You can't let them go. So a couple things I want to ask you about. Instead of going straight to the challenges, you had mentioned when we talked before, and I thought it was a great topic. It's something we've never talked about, and that was the insurance planning that your dad had done, prior to his passing. And I just thought I'd maybe ask you about that again and let you share that with our listeners, because so many people don't take care of that kind of stuff, especially as owners. You're so caught up in what you're doing that you fail to plan for the future. And as you had shared, he did a fantastic job of doing that. So do you mind sharing that again?
Not at all. And I have a picture here that I think we put this on YouTube, but there's Dad and I from about 10 years ago. And that's one of my favorite pictures of he and I. Sits on my desk now, and his former office, my new office, which is I'm in Brianna's because mine's a train wreck right now, getting stuff moved around. But yeah, the insurance is something that we had always known that was in place, and we didn't realize even until after he passed to what extent he had planned. And this is, I want to be clear, this is insurance separate from personal. He was. My sister's in a wheelchair. She has a rare bone disorder called osteogenesis imperfecta. And so he made sure that my mom and my sister were well taken care of from a personal standpoint, away from the business, so that they wouldn't have to worry about anything. Apparently, I still needed to work. So he, but he took care of me too, in the fact that he always made sure that we, even in the toughest times, a quote of his was, "Don't let the insurance lapse. Don't let the insurance lapse." Dad was a fairly healthy guy, but he had a history of heart problems in his family.
Yep.
And so he was, I think, planning for that. And of course, he passed from COVID in November of last year. But we found out, in the weeks after, just how much planning he had actually done. To the effect of, we thought it was one amount, and it was actually 50% more than we thought it was. And in our challenges, our debt has always been an issue, and a lot of business people understand that. And it's you take risk in order to grow the vision that you have. And 2020 was really going to be our year, and then COVID hit. We had just renegotiated with our bank to lower our debt servicing by half on a monthly basis. And so we were going to be able to invest more money into the business with salaries, with improvements, with repairs that needed to be made. And then COVID hit and everything got turned upside down. So through his planning with insurance, he made sure that the business would not only be able to continue after he was not here, because he knew that day would come at some point.
Right.
But to make sure that we were really in a position to thrive. It's strange to say, but we're more financially sound now than we were before COVID. And a lot of that's due to things like the PPPs, the RRFs, but a major component of it is dad's life insurance, dad's planning. And I think there's a biblical thing to that. We're a faith-based business. So there's a biblical thing of, a wise man leaves an inheritance for his children's children. And so not only setting us up, but setting us up for generations. So we're eternally grateful, and we would trade every penny to get him back, but it's kind of a bittersweet blessing that he was able to leave with us.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And again, it's, I know it's tough and hate to hear of his passing, but for all of the owners all of our business owner listeners out there, if you have not, made those plans for your business and your family, we encourage you to get out there and do something about it. It's one of those things that we all put off, whether it be personal or business related. Nobody wants to plan for the end, but again, as a business owner, you want to be able to take care of your people, your family. And I just thought that was a great piece to throw into this particular interview. So thank you for sharing that, Brooks. I appreciate it.
The only use doesn't have to be a debt or anything like that. You could do insurance, and this is what we've kind of talked about for myself, is if I was to, pass before my mom, who's now our majority owner, then a lot of what they would use my insurance proceeds for would be basically headhunting, finding who's going to run this thing, because she doesn't have a desire to. So either by herself without me. So either headhunting for, who runs it, or pursuing an aggressive sale of the business or anything like that. So those are plans that we hope are really, really far down the road. But it's conversations that you have to have. It's as important as succession planning. And I encourage people, just make it a line item, make it a part of your business plan that you are going to invest in your future.
Well said. Couldn't have put it any better. And thank you again for that. And with that, I'm going to switch back a little bit. And you
Sure.
talked about, you mentioned challenges earlier, and you mentioned debt having been an issue, or maybe still part of an issue, but a lot of businesses have that. What other challenges have you faced in this journey, either before your dad had passed or since? And maybe that's the most fresh, outside of COVID, of course.
Sure. Well, and he didn't wipe out all of our debt, but probably about 75 to 80% of it, and everything else now is much more manageable.
Yeah.
So we're in a process of buying out some former co-owners, but all that's manageable. There's 2 of them that come off in like 18 months. So really, really simple stuff. I think the biggest one that I've heard from your podcast has been staffing. Staffing is kind of the buzz, the buzzword of challenges right now. We're very fortunate that staffing has not been an issue through the pandemic for us as much as it has been for most other operations that I've heard of. And I attributed that to 2 different things. We have a lot of long-term veterans, and veterans in my mind is 15 years. That's how long I've been working here, since I was 15 and 16 on payroll. And so anybody that's been here longer than me, if you take all those people and you add them up, it's literally about 250 to 300 years of combined experience. Wow. Just here. My top 3 cooks are 100 years just between the 3 of them, 40, 40, and 20. And it's really, really incredible. So we have a lot of people that give that give every day, particularly through the pandemic, just a sense of stability to the daily operations. I don't have to worry about whether the food's going to get on for the buffet, because I know Miss Jenny, who's been there for 40 years, is working today. It doesn't matter. I could not show up and we're going to serve a buffet, kind of thing. There's a lot of peace that comes from that. The other thing I would really attribute our success to is we're a second chance workplace. We believe in, giving opportunities to people that are in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, or from sex trafficking victimizations. And so we work a lot with different recovery programs in Jackson and West Tennessee. We've done that really before it was cool. We've done it for over 10 years. And I think that the decisions that we made back then and the investments that we made in the staff have really led to our current team members that are in recovery. They'll go to a 12-step meeting or something like that. They'll meet somebody who's new into the program that's trying to get back on their feet and that was looking for a job that's going to understand their needs from a scheduling standpoint or from a safe place, so that's not an alcohol, a restaurant that serves alcohol or has a big drug environment or culture, which is, kind of it's very prevalent throughout our industry, especially in the past. It's getting a lot better, but it's still kind of that stereotype of restaurant employees is that there can be a big drug scene. So they're looking for somewhere that's safe to work, right? Our current team members have basically become recruiters for those new people in those recovery programs. They're saying, hey, look, if you're looking for a job, this is a good place to go. They're going to be respectful of you. They're not going to judge you on your past. I've heard almost every story under the sun from people as I've been doing their interviews, and I get really candid with them. I always ask them, can I ask you some personal questions? And I just say, what got you here? And it's incredible to hear people open up their stories. And the big thing too in those interviews is I'll ask them, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And it's very humbling to hear them say, I just want to get custody of my kids back. It really helps keep me grounded of how fortunate I am and how fortunate so much of the world is. When you hear people just start to break down about my goal in 5 years is I want my kids back. I want to be in a house on my own and I want my kids. Even in the second chance, people have really grown into leadership. I've got multiple managers of their own departments that were in drug addiction or were in they were victims of sex trafficking or different things like that. And they're incredible people, and they have a real sense of gratitude that they exude not only onto the staff, but onto our guests too.
Yeah.
So staffing hasn't been, fortunately, as big a deal for us.
Yeah, let me ask you something specific about that, because I'm thinking, I mean, what a great solution for staffing industries or for the staffing issues across the restaurant space specifically. Are there any additional like HR issues that arrive from employing recovery victims? Insurance costs, any of that kind of stuff change, with these?
I can't think of any hard costs that come with hiring like that. What you'll see some increased turnover. And I mean, we get burned sometimes on it, but we're still doing the right thing, I think, by taking a risk. And the ones that work out are worth 15 not working out. I mean,
Yeah.
they're incredible people, and they're a big part of what makes us so successful.
That's awesome. What a great idea and great advice for those who are struggling on the staffing side. Again, some of the restaurants and bars, it may not be as applicable there, depending on where the second chance folks are coming from.
Sure.
But there's probably other people out there who need help or are in need, who maybe that's not an issue for and would make great employees. So
that plays into someone that spent time in jail or in prison that has made a genuine change, and that drug and alcohol was not their issues. It was petty crime. It was petty issues, things like that. But they're really worth giving that second chance to.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me ask you, because I know you've listened to a couple podcasts, and the other big issues in our space is food cost and shortages. Are you guys seeing much of that over in Jackson, or?
Yeah, I think everybody is. We're starting to see shortages as more of an issue with drivers, with delivery drivers, instead of just not having things on hand. We're seeing the supplies to distributors being a problem a little bit, but it's just as much now an issue with trying to get drivers. So we purchase from both U.S. Foods and Sysco. We're primarily with U.S. Foods and have a great partnership with them. Anybody that, I would recommend anybody in the Memphis area that doesn't use U.S. Foods to take a look at them. Both are really, really well run, but we've just done some extra research, and that's who our primary partner is for a period of 4 years, I think, and then we'll kind of rebid it out.
Yeah.
So we're seeing some issues with the shortages on pricing. Operating a buffet is hard, and it's hard to do it successfully. One of the fortunate things for us is with our business model, we have the gift shop that does a lot of sales and a lot of profit. We have the Dixie Cafe that does a lot of sales and a lot of profit. We have caterings that we do a lot of, and they're very profitable. So the way we've kind of built it is that there's these other components of the business that help make up for the lower profits of a buffet. And so we're really able to see in a great month better profitability percentage wise than your traditional restaurant operation. And that's great. That's really nice to have. And it helps us lead to more growth. The buffet's probably been the biggest operational challenge of the last 18 months because all of a sudden COVID hits and buffets become a 4-letter word. And we had to figure that out. So we pivoted for a time to family style dining, and a lot of buffets were doing that. So we would bring the guest limited quantities per plate, but we offered them unlimited refills. So it's still an all you care to enjoy experience. It was a short-lived fix that we did for probably about 4 to 6 months. I can't remember exactly. But it allowed us to get people back on staff. It allowed us to keep the doors open, and allowed us to, continue to pursue relief efforts like the PPPs until the public really just kind of demanded. Our public in Jackson, our demographic, our guests really just kind of demanded, we want the buffet. Do it safely, but we want the buffet.
Yeah. Where's that buffet?
Yeah. It's like we like the family style. We dealt with it for a few months, but we really want to have the buffet back. So we did it safely with gloves and hand sanitizer and all that good stuff. But there's no limitations on anything in Jackson and Madison County right now. I don't think there's anything from the state level either. So we're blowing and going as hard as we can.
Yeah,
trying to get back to where we were in 2019.
That's awesome. And I've never really asked anyone on that's had such a large buffet that you guys operate over there. Is the biggest issue waste?
Yeah, waste is a big issue. And we're trying to come up with some really creative things to do with waste. There's a couple different ways you can kind of skin that cat. Some things are easy to either be reused in another purpose, like you take vegetables and you make vegetable soup and things like that, or we take chicken and add it to casseroles and things, various things like that. But the key is just trying to be as efficient on the cooking process at the beginning as we can be. So you've got to supply a great product all the way through the end of the night, and so waste is a factor. And you mitigate that by building it into the cost of the buffet, and just trying to train your staff as good as you can.
Yeah, I would think that another solution there, and you're probably utilizing. I know you've got POS systems in place. Are you able to forecast? I mean, do you know how many potatoes you need at a buffet? On a Tuesday night for the mashed potatoes. Do you utilize that data in your POS to try to help forecast?
We utilize that from my cook's been here for 40 years. That's how we forecast that. So not as much from a POS standpoint. Of course, we look at historical data, and we look at how many guests do we serve last week and how many we're expecting today, and are there any big parties that mean we need to put more on, and different things like that. But no, a lot of it's just, it's kind of like how you used to brew beer. It was more of an art than a science, and so you've we're so blessed to have every morning somebody between those three cooks that's here that they just know, and they're able to. They're really able to keep it a lot closer than a normal person should be able to. It's kind of their superpower, I would say.
Yeah, that's cool. And your challenge will be, going forward, is to start planning for when you don't have that.
Don't say it.
Yeah,
Don't think about it.
Yeah, I know you don't. There's always stuff like that. But
the
yeah,
plan is to take two of those three that they've been here 40 years apiece. Both those cooks. And their next position will be they're teachers. They are teachers and trainers, and they are quality people, and they're training and leading and constantly retraining the next generation of cooks. And we're going to make sure that everybody understands that is the most valuable person in that kitchen, is making sure that quality is there, and that knowledge is passed on. So, and we're going to compensate them well for that. So that's that is kind of the plan moving forward. But right now, I got to find enough cooks to be able to do that.
Yeah. Are you seeing like an increase this year in labor cost?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And that kind of comes out of, again, us being on better financial ground. We've wanted to do increases in payroll and have done them where we absolutely had to over the last 3 years. Something to know about us before COVID is the interstate that we're right on in Jackson has been under construction for the last 2 years before COVID. And so that includes the intersection right in front of us of the state highway and the intersection of the interstate, excuse me. So we had already seen sales decreases to the tune of about, we guesstimate $600,000 over two years before COVID ever hit. So it was extremely tight then. Again, that led to a restructuring with our bank for our debt servicing. That was really, really helpful. That was in the fall of 2019, which again was going to make 2020 our year, and then COVID. But since Dad's passing and since our better financial ground, and since sales have really been ticking up, we've invested pretty heavily in staff pay rates. Our current minimum wage in Tennessee is $7.25. Our internal minimum wage for tipped positions outside of servers. So some like the host and the cashiers, they earn a tip out. Servers are still $2.13 an hour, but our servers earn just as good of money as anybody else in Jackson, if not better, in a buffet setting, which is really incredible. So our internal minimum wage is $8.50, $1.25 over what it is for the state. For the kitchen, it's $10. Somebody coming in first job as a dishwasher is earning $10 an hour. And there's a culture here that we haven't talked about yet, and that's probably the biggest differentiator for us, is that this is just a different place to work. And this is a place that we care about the people that work for us, work with us, and it shows. And people will leave and they'll try and come back, and they're just like, I was wrong. The grass isn't green on the other side. There's just something special about working here, and that's the biggest thing that we have going for us is our culture.
Yeah, that's awesome. And one thing I didn't mention early on that you had told me last time was that that you serve or have served over 500,000 guests a year at that buffet.
Yes.
That's a large number, man. I can't even get my mind around that as to what that looks like.
Every day I understand the miracle of feeding the 5,000.
Yeah.
Every day I understand a little bit more. It's like Jesus must have had a buffet.
Fish and bread.
That's right. Fish and bread.
Fish and bread. That's awesome. Well, congratulations on all that. Is the construction done? I didn't ask that specifically.
Almost. The highway's done. They finished our exit, and most of the construction is now a little bit further down the interstate, but it's much easier for people to access us than it's ever been. And not only to get in, but to get out, because you used to have to make a crazy U-turn to head north and get back on the interstate. And we had over 500 tour buses a year.
Wow.
For COVID. And so now you're able to turn left, and Dad was actually, he was in the first car to turn left out of the village.
I'd love to ask you next about your training development, kind of how you guys or what you guys are doing to help improve your employees and help them be better and be able to give better service. And by the way, how many do you have?
We have about 81, 82 right now. Probably need to cap it for now about 86.
Got it.
Give or take.
Got it. All right. I'm sure you guys are working with, you've got them working together, like when you bring in new employees and things like that. Can you just give us a quick overview of kind of what the training piece looks like and anything special you're doing, to develop new leaders in the company?
Sure. We kind of have a training program right now of not quite straight into the frying pan, but we pair somebody with one of the veterans that's been here for a long time, and that way they're able to get a feel for the culture as much as the technical components of the job. Yeah. With bringing on leaders and really kind of bringing on leaders has been the focus of the last 8 months. Is positions like Brianna in social media and a new gift shop manager, and just kind of really kind of cultivating. I view my job as to cultivate those direct reports and those leaders, and then that kind of gets passed down into the frontline team members if I'm doing my job properly. So we spend a lot more time now on focusing on training for those leaders. Have a once a week staff meeting where we go over what the issues are, what the opportunities are. We constantly talk about culture in those meetings. We're investing in leadership conferences and have done that over the last several years to where we'll take both current leaders and potential future leaders. So frontline team members get the opportunity to go with us too. And that may be a John C. Maxwell or a Dave Ramsey leadership conference, but and then we do trips too. Mostly it's been myself and my wife going on trips, but I call them R&D trips, but R&D doesn't stand for research and development. It stands for rob and duplicate. So we look for great things that people are doing in North Carolina is my next place to go. We've been to South Carolina, been to Georgia, been to Florida, been to Chicago, New Orleans. Look for what are great things people are doing there and what can we bring back and incorporate into the business. And I think every restaurant leader does that to some degree. You can't just go out to dinner, right? You're watching what's that host is doing that we can improve at our place, or what kind of plate are they serving here? I really like this plate. I want to incorporate it at our restaurant, kind of thing. So, those are the kind of things that we've done in the past and want to really increase in the future when it comes to training, especially for our leadership.
I think, we had talked about that. I forgot about the R&D part where we talked about it last time. I failed to make a note, and as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh yeah, I love that. Rob and duplicate. But when somebody's got a great business or a great practice or something they're doing that helps deliver a better customer experience, why not share it? And I think everyone's willing to do that because especially in the food space, it's all about delivering that experience. And especially with the business like Old Country Store and Casey Jones Village, you're selling the experience. It's not just a meal, right?
Right. That's a great way to phrase it, and really, it's the exact phrasing that we use. Is I picked this quote up from a restaurant actually in Raleigh, North Carolina, but it's, we sell memories and experiences, and that's why people keep coming back.
I like that. I'm gonna try to type that in right quick so I don't forget it.
It's a good one. It's a great quote.
That is that's really good. Hey, let's talk about a little bit about, and I know you've got the lovely Brianna there in the background, and I'm curious. Of late, I've been asking people a little bit more about their marketing and kind of what their marketing mix is looking like. And it's interesting because many owners have said, "Hey, we we're not doing as much because we don't have the staff to support the business. Has that been an issue for you guys? And if not, what are you doing to kind of keep yourself out in front of the public?
Sure. Well, my dad was a big marketing mind, and again, probably sometimes the vision would overrun the pocketbook there. So
Yeah.
we've spent the last year kind of really trying to refine what our marketing plan is, and I'm in the process of preparing kind of my ideal budget of what it looks like going forward. A few things I am a big believer in. For us, billboards absolutely work on the interstate. So the key is finding the right number. And not, overdoing it, and not doing too little. Even before Brianna, we had a guy named Aaron that was our social media marketing guy. And so I believed it was important to have somebody on staff that's paid to do social media. If you want to excel in this day and age where everybody with an iPhone can be a social media marketing person, then we invest in her on training. We're constantly emailing back and forth on ideas, on articles of how to do things better. We even went as far as, instead of making her an hourly position, it's a salary position. So we say we're averaging this amount of hours per week, but she's keeping an eye on things at home to a proper degree. I'm not expecting her to respond in the middle of the night when somebody sends a message at 1 o'clock in the morning, or to take time away from her family. But she knows that we have the trust in her to get the job done, whether you're here in the office or whether you're not. So she's been a really invaluable part of the team. And Aaron was before. He left in the middle of the pandemic, just for some better security. He was getting married and needed to provide some better security for his future bride, who also works for us. They met here at the store, which was really cool.
Oh, yeah, that is cool.
All those wonderful things. And now they're expecting, I think, a little girl. So, which is really awesome. Anyway, that's kind of a tangent, but we think that's social media is vitally important, not only in paying a person to do it, but in paying for sponsored content. As much as you hate to, we pay for sponsored content on Facebook and on Instagram. We work with our local tourism department, our state tourism department, I should say. They have a wonderful publication, Tennessee Vacation Guide, that comes out. We're getting a sponsored space on tnvacation.com. That will be a featured listing for our attraction here. We do some things with print, locally print, not as much with the newspaper, but more with kind of the social magazines, kind of a VIP type thing, particularly from like their menu issues and things like that. So there's a big mix of what we do from a marketing side. And I think you've got to be, I don't think you can just do one, we do a lot with TV as well. And there's one channel in particular, one of the Two's news channels, who has just hired the guy who actually filmed my wedding, and their quality has just gone through the roof. So we do a lot of work with them, and we cross promote those on Facebook, on Instagram, on our website. We're going to kind of update our YouTube page with things like that. So a lot of irons and a lot of fires when it comes to marketing. But that's kind of that's one of the parts I really do enjoy too, is I like telling the story.
Yeah, well, it's a great story to tell, and I'm just going to ask you, because I've never asked anyone before to share their thoughts on it. But what do you I've read a lot on it. What do you think is the right number as like a percentage of sales that you ought to be spending in marketing?
Depends on who you ask.
Yeah, I know it does. I know.
CFO.
Everything I read on, that I study and research on, it's anywhere from 3 to 10%, and it's like, where do you land? And I'm just starting, it's a new question. I'm starting to get curious about what people are doing. Are you able to put a number to it yet, like that?
No, I'm not. I think my CFO would like me to, but I'm not able to put a number to it yet. I think a lot of that depends on how big your business is. You know, we're a substantially sized small business in terms of revenue. So 10% of our revenue would be way too much, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I think that's geared more towards startups and, people
Yeah,
trying to get
yeah.
established.
I'd say we'd probably be around the range of 3
Yeah.
would probably be where we are. So we're towards that lower end. Um, I know places that they don't do any kind of paid marketing,
Yeah.
or they do very, very little of it because their reputation is just that good. So they, I think it just varies depending on the business you're in and how long it's been around, how big it is, and I almost think it would be unwise to put an exact number on what it should be.
Right.
In my opinion.
Yeah. And it's
I've never
funny.
gotten that question. You've never asked it. I've never gotten it. So there we are.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I've got some restaurant owners I've talked with, and they're like, "Yeah, we spend like $400 a year," and they're nicely sized restaurants. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, that's a 0.1% of sales, but
Yeah.
good for you, and it seems to be working. So
Must be nice.
yeah, exactly. Hey, any plans? I'm gonna close, get us up here to wrap up. But any plans to grow outside of Jackson, Tennessee? Are you looking at anything like that outside the state or outside the area?
Oh, no, not really. We've talked in the past. We've just kind of daydreamed about where we would go if we were to open up some other places. I think we've got more than enough to keep our hands full right here. And I really kind of view the growth of the business as a multi-concept operation. I've got other ideas. I've got other things that I would like to do here in Jackson. I certainly don't mind the idea of being a big fish in a small pond. I've really started kind of watching the career of a guy named Robert St. John out of Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and kind of what he's doing to impact his community down there as a multi-concept operation. Really liking what he's doing from a philanthropy standpoint, from a, Hattiesburg's not a huge town, but creating some really unique offerings that his locals love, and I'd kind of like to do some stuff like that here.
Great. Well, it's always great to have someone to kind of look up to and to model yourself behind, outside of the faith, of course, which is number one, but always great to have those kind of mentors and people that you want to emulate, especially ones that are doing great things. So again, I know we're coming up on a stop for you where you've got some other things going on. So I'll just ask you any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you might share with any of our other listeners.
I don't have to say that these are the hardest times we've ever been through, because everybody else has literally said that over the last 18 months. But I would encourage people to just really try and put some positive influences in their life, whether that's being at church, whether it's just listening to great music, or hanging out with friends and people that you trust. It's so easy to get caught in just all the bad stuff, right? That it's important for me to constantly be refilled, whether that's hanging out with one of my best friends and just smoking a couple cigars and just talking about life, or going and seeing a movie that I want to see, or hanging out with my wife and daughter, or going to church, or just kind of paying attention to what I'm putting in my head from either a music or a movie standpoint. But it's important to really just make sure you're taking care of yourself so that you can lead effectively with other people.
I think that's great advice, and very difficult to do in a lot of cases for busy restaurant owners. But again, it's great advice. Hang around great people, listen to great things that are motivating and positive. Stay away from the negative. And I think it helps you definitely on the business side. Once you come back, you're refreshed, you've refilled that tank, and you're ready to go. So super advice, Brooks. I appreciate you guys taking the time today to share your your experience with the business and your advice, your wisdom. and you're, even talking about your challenges and ways that you've worked to overcome them. I think it'll be very impactful for our listeners. So thank you very much for taking time to do this with us today.
Sure thing. Hope they can get something out of it.
I'm absolutely sure. I know I have, and I'm sure that our listeners will as well. Again, we've been talking with Brooks Shaw at the Old Country Store in the Casey Jones Village in Jackson, Tennessee. Let's get it right today. I was trying to put him in Mississippi for all our listeners, but it's Jackson, Tennessee. If you're on the highway, make sure you stop in and enjoy some time with them, and jump on the buffet or any of the other ice cream, any of the other opportunities that are there. We're going to have your website, showing up again on the screen here. So we encourage you guys to check them out on the web, see what they're all about. And again, if you're anywhere near Jackson, Tennessee, get over there and spend some time with Brooks and his team, and they will treat you right. It'll be a great experience for all of us. So thanks again for being on the show today, Brooks. I appreciate your time, and look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And for all our listeners, thanks for joining us for another Local Leaders podcast. We hope you'll come back for the next one and continue to check in with us every Monday and Wednesday as we're releasing new episodes all across your favorite podcast channels as well as YouTube. We look forward to seeing you there, and we look forward to seeing you on our next podcast. Thank you.